My Chinese girlfriend's parents mocked me in Chinese for 2 years until I gave my wedding speech in Mandarin. When I first met Lin's parents, neither she nor they knew I was fluent, so I planned to surprise them all by giving a toast at dinner in Mandarin. However, that got thrown out the window the moment her mom saw me, because she literally gasped, "He's actually goddamn black," she called out to her husband in Mandarin. Then she turned to Lin, "Why are you like this?" All while keeping a perfect smile. That was the moment I decided to keep my mouth shut and see what her parents really thought of me. And unfortunately, that was just the start. During that entire dinner, they kept trying to convince Lin to break up with me, insulting my skin color, telling her my kind cheated on women all the time. I just nodded politely and thanked them for being so welcoming. I decided to keep my knowledge of Mandarin a complete secret going forward, but things escalated when Lin and I got serious. During a family photo at her cousin's wedding, her mom positioned herself next to me and deliberately ground her stiletto heel into my foot. She kept pressing down, telling her sister in Mandarin that black men were angry, and I'd most likely lash out at her, and now Lin would see who I really am. But I just kept smiling for the photo. There were a few other instances like that here and there, but when me and Lin got engaged, her parents got really desperate. Her mom insisted on doing the dishes after dinner one night, and because I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter and Lin was in the bathroom, she dropped my phone in the sink full of soapy water. At a summer barbecue, her dad offered me an imported beer to celebrate something at his work. They discussed in Mandarin how the sleeping pills he put should knock me out within 20 minutes. I still don't know why they wanted me asleep, but I just pretended to take a sip and thanked him, then walked around the corner and spit it all out. Just as I thought her parents couldn't get any worse, during Lin's grandmother's birthday, I was helping serve soup when her dad whispered to the mom in Mandarin that the soup was extremely hot. On cue, her mom immediately turned and tripped, pouring the entire pot of boiling soup down my back. The pain was unbearable, and my shirt melted into my skin. I dropped to the floor and started shaking, and almost like practiced, her mom began crying fake tears and apologizing. She called an ambulance for me, then 4 days later mailed the hospital bill to mine and Lin's house. When I reached the date of my bar exam, things reached the point of no return. Lin's parents knew I'd been studying for 3 years, and the night before the test, they used Lin's laptop to delete my exam registration. They sat on the couch discussing in Mandarin how 3 years of law school would be wasted, and surely Lin would leave me then. I found out at 3 a.m. and spent 4 hours on the phone getting emergency re-registration. Her parents texted a lie to Lin that morning saying they saw me at a bar instead of the exam. The final straw came the week before our wedding. At a restaurant while Lin was in the bathroom, I heard them discussing paying a woman $50,000 to interrupt our ceremony and claim I assaulted her. Her mom showed her dad photos of the actress and fake bruise makeup they'd use. They toasted with their wine glasses to finally solving their problem. On our wedding day at the final family breakfast, they confirmed the woman was in position and reviewed the exact timing. They showed each other photos and talked about how innocent she looked and how everyone would believe her. They smiled at me and asked if I was ready for my big day. Well, that's when I decided to drop the bomb. I'd been literally waiting for this moment for years. Ever since I first learned how much they hated me, I'd been planning my revenge. And so, before the ceremony started, I asked all the guests to gather around because I had an announcement to make. Lin's parents looked confused but came closer. I clinked my glass, looked them right in their eyes, and began speaking in perfect Mandarin. I stared right at them and watched the blood completely drain from their faces. Her mother looked like how I assume Moses looked when that bush started talking to him. Her dad went pale and stared at me like I'd grown 5 heads. I saw them start to literally cower. I began my speech by thanking them for 2 wonderful years of welcoming me into their family. I told everyone how for my entire relationship with my beautiful wife, I had understood her parents' words, just never told them, because I felt blessed being able to hear their true thoughts about me, because they thought I couldn't understand them. I then stared right at them. They were practically begging me not to go on, but I did. I started to praise their constant warmth and acceptance. I specifically thanked her mother for being so careful with my belongings, and her father for always looking out for my safety. I mentioned how touched I was by their enthusiasm for our wedding. The crowd erupted in applause, but I silenced everyone, telling them I have one more announcement to make. I said that my father had called that morning with news. To celebrate mine and Lin's wedding, he had gifted us an estate from his portfolio, meaning Lin and I now have a house of our one. But even better than that, he left something else too, something specifically for Lin's parents. I announced that I had told him all about them and how they treated me all throughout my relationship, and he wanted to personally thank them with a surprise gift that should be arriving at some point throughout the wedding. The crowd erupted again. The parents looked at me with horror. I swear I saw the mom actually start to pee herself in fear. She was so scared that her fingers started twitching, meaning that benign fasciculation syndrome, her neuromuscular disease that had been gone for 3 years, flared up. After all the congratulations were over, her dad walked up to me shaking. "Outside now. We have to talk." I followed him outside, my heart pounding as Lin's father grabbed my arm the moment we stepped into the parking lot. His grip was desperate, fingers digging into my sleeve. He pulled me toward the far corner where fewer guests could see us. His face had gone from pale to almost gray, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool morning air. Behind us, I heard the reception hall doors open and close as guests moved between the ceremony space and cocktail area. The man who had tormented me for years now looked small and frightened. He kept glancing over his shoulder, checking if anyone had followed us. His hand trembled as he released my arm and stepped back. I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. A black SUV circled the parking lot slowly, its tinted windows reflecting the morning sun. Lynn's father noticed it too, his eyes tracking the vehicle as it passed. He opened his mouth several times before finally managing to speak. His voice came out hoarse and strained. I watched him struggle to form the words, his usual confidence completely shattered. The SUV made another slow pass through the parking lot. This time it stopped briefly near the entrance before continuing its circuit. Lynn's father's breathing quickened. I explained calmly that my father was indeed a successful businessman who valued family loyalty above all else. I mentioned how he had built his portfolio over decades, acquiring properties and businesses across the state. I added that he had connections everywhere, people who owed him favors and respected his influence. Lynn's father's face went from gray to white. He stumbled backward, catching himself against a parked car. His eyes darted between me and the circling SUV. The reception hall door opened again. Lynn appeared, her wedding dress catching the breeze as she called out to us. She reminded us about the cake cutting, waving us back inside. Her smile faltered when she saw her father's expression. Her father turned back to me, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. He begged me to call off whatever was planned. He promised they would leave us alone forever, never interfere again. His hands shook as he clasped them together. I smiled and told him it was already in motion. The look of horror that crossed his face was something I'd never seen before. This man who had drugged my beer, who had watched his wife pour boiling soup on me, who had tried to destroy my legal career, finally understood. They had underestimated who they were dealing with. Lynn called out again, more insistent this time. Other guests were starting to notice our absence. I gestured for her father to walk back with me, maintaining my pleasant smile. He moved like a man heading to his execution, each step heavy and reluctant. As we approached the door, he grabbed my arm one more time, his grip weak and pleading. I gently removed his hand and held the door open for him. Back inside the reception hall, the atmosphere was festive. Guests mingled with champagne glasses, unaware of the drama unfolding. Lynn's mother stood near the cake table, her fingers still twitching uncontrollably. When she saw us return, she immediately approached. Her hands shook as she tried to maintain her composure. She asked what I wanted: money, an apology, for them to leave Lynn's life completely. Her voice cracked on the last option. I picked up the microphone for a toast instead of answering her directly. The room quieted as glasses were raised. I announced how grateful I was that my new in-laws had taught me the importance of family protection. I praised their dedication to their daughter, even if their methods were unconventional. Lynn's parents exchanged panicked glances across the room. Several Asian guests who had understood my earlier Mandarin speech watched them with barely concealed disgust. Whispers spread through small groups as people pieced together the implications. During the cake cutting, Lynn leaned close and whispered her confusion. She asked what was really happening with her parents, noting their strange behavior. I told her we needed to discuss some things after the reception about her parents' actions over the years. Her face showed a mix of concern and curiosity, but she nodded. We cut the cake together as photographers captured the moment, her parents visible in the background looking increasingly distressed. The wedding photographer then called for family photos. I insisted Lynn's parents join us, positioning them in the center of the group. As the photographer adjusted his camera, I leaned toward them and whispered a reminder to smile like they had when they poured soup on me. Lynn's mother's twitching intensified. Her father's hands trembled as he tried to maintain a smile for the camera. The flash went off repeatedly, capturing their barely concealed terror for posterity. After the photos, Lynn's aunt approached her sister. She spoke in Mandarin about how she never knew I understood their language. She mentioned reconsidering some past conversations, her tone carrying an edge of accusation. Other family members began creating distance from Lynn's parents, their body language shifting noticeably. My best man Marcus found me near the bar. He mentioned seeing someone who looked like a process server asking for directions to our reception. The man had been very specific about needing to find this particular wedding. Lynn's parents, overhearing this, began frantically scanning the room. Her mother's eyes darted toward every entrance, while her father checked his phone repeatedly. During a brief lull in the festivities, Lynn's mother cornered me in the hallway leading to the restrooms. Her desperation had reached new heights. She offered to transfer their entire savings if I would call off whatever was coming. She pulled out her phone to show me their bank balance. I simply smiled and returned to the reception, leaving her standing alone in the hallway. Later, I found Lynn's father trying to slip out the back exit. I reminded him that leaving would make them look guilty to all the relatives who expected parent-child dances. I mentioned specifically that Lynn's grandmother had asked about the traditional dances. He froze at the door, trapped between his desperation to flee and the social obligations that would expose his fear to everyone. The father-daughter dance arrived too quickly for him. As the music began, Lynn's father's hands trembled visibly as he led her onto the dance floor. Guests watched the touching moment, though some noticed his obvious distress. Meanwhile, I danced with my own mother, who leaned close and whispered that they deserved whatever was coming. As the evening progressed, the gift-opening ceremony began. Most presents were typical: kitchen appliances, decorative items, checks and cards. Then my father's assistant arrived, carrying an ornate wooden box. He He announced it needed to be opened privately with just the immediate families. We moved to the bridal suite. Lynn and I, her parents, my parents, and the assistant. The box sat on the table between us like a ticking bomb. Lynn's parents stared at it as if it might explode. Inside, we found property deeds and a letter. I read it aloud, my voice steady, as I thanked Lynn's parents for motivating me to document everything over the years. As I spoke, security footage stills became visible in the box, images from various incidents they thought had gone unrecorded. Lynn's confusion turned to shock. She demanded an explanation, her voice rising with each word. I revealed that I had been recording their conversations for 2 years, every raxed comment and every planned attack. I played a brief audio clip on my phone, her mother's voice clearly discussing the soup incident. The room erupted. Lynn's mother claimed the recordings were illegal, her voice shrill with panic. My father, joining by speakerphone, explained that his legal team had verified everything was obtained in public spaces where no expectation of privacy existed. The revelations continued. I produced documents showing my father owned the company that held the mortgage on Lynn's parents' house. The papers showed they were 3 months behind on payments. Lynn broke down, tears streaming as she struggled to process the betrayal. Her mother tried to claim they only wanted to protect her, but Lynn was beginning to see through the manipulation. She admitted she had suspected something, but had chosen to ignore the signs. My father's voice came through the speaker again. He mentioned having lunch with Lynn's father's boss recently to discuss workplace integrity. Lynn's father sank into a chair as his phone began pinging with text notifications. The extended family's group chat exploded with messages asking why Lynn's parents had left the reception early. Her cousin posted that they had seemed terrified of something. Back at the hotel that night, Lynn confronted her parents alone while I waited outside their room. Their raised voices carried through the door, accusations, denials, and finally admissions. When Lynn emerged, her face was set with determination. She declared she needed to know everything. I handed her a folder documenting each incident with dates, photos, and evidence. She flipped through it, recognizing her mother's handwriting on some planning notes. The final revelation of the night came when I explained about the actress. The woman her parents had hired to ruin our wedding had contacted me weeks ago, uncomfortable with the scheme. Lynn called her on speaker, and the actress confirmed everything. The $50,000 payment, the fake assault claim, the bruise makeup. She provided screenshots of every text message. Lynn stared at her parents as the weight of their actions settled over the room. The foundation of our marriage had been built on their hatred, but now that foundation was crumbling beneath them. The next morning brought no relief. My parents arrived at our honeymoon suite before breakfast, their faces serious. Lynn's parents had shown up at their hotel room at dawn, desperate and disheveled. My mother described how they'd pounded on the door until security threatened to remove them. My father sized up the situation with the calculating look I'd seen him use in business negotiations. He explained how he'd built his import business from nothing, how respect meant everything in his world. He'd made calls to associates who ran background checks on Lynn's parents. The information they'd uncovered went beyond what I'd documented. Lynn sat beside me, processing each revelation. Her mother's book club president had already called 3 members that morning, discussing whether to formally remove her. The country club where her father golfed had received anonymous tips about his character. Their social circle was collapsing faster than dominoes. My mother, who'd immigrated from Haiti and built her own business empire, warned Lynn's parents through my father about underestimating black families. She'd faced worse discrimination and emerged stronger. She explained how our community protected its own, how word traveled fast when someone showed their true colors. The hotel pool area buzzed with wedding guests extending their stay. Conversations stopped when Lynn's parents appeared, trying to act normal. Their forced smiles fooled no one. Lynn's cousin openly discussed the reception revelation on her phone, not bothering to lower her voice. Someone had already posted about it on WeChat, calling the parents out by name. I handed Lynn several USB drives containing every piece of evidence I'd collected. The choice of what to do with it belonged to her. She held them like they weighed 1,000 pounds, understanding the power they represented. Lynn's parents sought legal advice from their lawyer friend, only to discover he regularly golfed with my father. The awkwardness of that meeting became apparent when the lawyer excused himself after 5 minutes, claiming a scheduling conflict. During a tense lunch at the hotel restaurant, Lynn confronted her parents with specific questions about each incident. They squirmed in their seats, offering weak justifications that crumbled under scrutiny. Her mother's hand tremor had worsened overnight, making it difficult for her to hold her water glass steady. I revealed that the private investigator I'd hired had uncovered interesting details about her father's side business. The supposed consulting firm had irregularities that warranted closer examination. His face went ashen at the implications. Sarah, Lynn's childhood friend, arrived at the hotel with her own revelations. She described how Lynn's parents had tried to set Lynn up with other men even after our engagement, arranging accidental meetings with eligible Chinese bachelors. They'd told these men that Lynn was having second thoughts about me. My father sent a gift basket to Lynn's parents' house with a note reading, "For your health." It contained antacids, stress relief tea, and blood pressure medication. The delivery driver made sure neighbors noticed the dramatic presentation, complete with a large bow and loud announcement of the recipients. Lynn discovered her parents had withdrawn her college fund years ago, claiming it was for her future. The money money had actually funded their schemes against me, including the actress payment. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical harm they'd attempted. The actress arrived at our hotel to apologize to Lynn personally. She brought evidence of other families Lynn's parents had interfered with over the years. There was a clear pattern of sabotaging relationships they deemed unsuitable, affecting at least 3 other couples. Lynn's grandmother called from China after hearing about the wedding drama through the family grapevine. She sided with Lynn completely, revealing she'd never approved of the parents' behavior but had stayed quiet to keep peace. Her support meant everything to Lynn. I offered Lynn's parents a deal: full confession to Lynn with genuine therapy, or I'd release everything to their community. They had 48 hours to decide. The ultimatum hung over them like a storm cloud. Lynn's mother attempted emotional manipulation by claiming chest pains during a family gathering. Lynn recognized the performance immediately and walked away, refusing to enable the behavior. Other relatives witnessed the failed manipulation attempt. My investigators' next report revealed Lynn's father had been embezzling from his company to fund their schemes against me. Employment records showed suspicious transactions coinciding with their various plots. His position was now precarious. Lynn decided to confront her extended family with the truth at a dim-sum gathering. She brought the evidence to the community center where she taught weekend Chinese school. Family members who'd gathered for her class listened in shocked silence as she played recordings. The family matriarch, Lynn's great-aunt, denounced the parents publicly after hearing everything. Her word carried enormous weight in their community. She declared their behavior had brought shame to the family name. Lynn's favorite cousin revealed the parents had tried to sabotage her own interracial relationship years earlier. The pattern was undeniable now, spanning decades of interference in family members' romantic choices. The parents' best friends stopped returning their calls. Their weekly mahjong group found a new 4th player. Invitations to community events stopped arriving. The social isolation was swift and complete. I chose not to pursue legal action despite having grounds for several charges. I told Lynn I wanted them to face social consequences instead of criminal ones. The community's judgment would be more lasting than any court sentence. At their financial advisor's office, Lynn's parents discovered my father was the advisor's biggest client. The meeting became excruciating as the advisor sweated nervously, clearly torn between professional obligations and personal relationships. My father revealed he'd been documenting everything through his security company's resources. Every public interaction had been legally recorded. The extent of the surveillance network surprised even me. Lynn's mother's book club officially expelled her after her behavior at the wedding became gossip. The president delivered the news personally, returning her membership card cut in half. The parents attempted to apologize at Lynn's apartment building. She refused to buzz them in, watching through the window as they stood in the rain. Neighbors witnessed the scene, adding to their humiliation. Lynn's therapist helped her process the revelation that her parents' control went deeper than she'd ever realized. Years of manipulation became clear in retrospect. Seemingly innocent childhood memories took on sinister undertones. I met with the actress again to understand the full scope of the parents' plan. She revealed they had connections to her acting coach and had used him before for similar schemes. The web of deception was vast. Lynn's workplace sent flowers congratulating the newlyweds, pointedly not mentioning her parents in the card. Co-workers who knew the situation shared knowing looks when Lynn thanked them. The parents' church community began asking uncomfortable questions about the wedding incident. Their pastor requested a private meeting to discuss the allegations. Their reputation in every sphere of their life was crumbling. At a family gathering, Lynn's uncle, bitter and hammered, revealed how her mother had interfered in his engagement 20 years ago. The woman he'd loved had been driven away by lies and manipulation. The family pattern of interference was generational. Lynn protected her younger cousin from the parents' influence, warning her about their manipulation tactics. The cousin revealed recent strange conversations where the parents had questioned her about her dating life. My family rallied around Lynn, including her in business discussions and family decisions. She was truly one of us now, more daughter than daughter-in-law. The contrast with her biological parents was stark. The parents' attempt to spread rumors about me backfired spectacularly. People fact-checked their claims and found them baseless. Their credibility was completely destroyed in the community. The family accountant refused to continue working with Lynn's parents after reviewing suspicious transactions. He cited ethical concerns and terminated their professional relationship immediately. Lynn's reputation at work grew as colleagues admired her handling of the situation. She showed grace under pressure that impressed everyone. Her parents' attempts to embarrass her had achieved the opposite effect. The wedding videographer contacted us about interesting footage he'd captured. The parents' private conversations during the reception were audible in several clips. Their planning and panic were documented from multiple angles. Lynn gave her parents an ultimatum: seek family therapy with a therapist she chose or lose her forever. The deadline created panic as they realized she was serious. Their time was running out. Community members who'd attended the wedding began sharing videos of the revelation speech online. The clips went viral in their social circles. The parents couldn't escape the consequences anywhere they went. The stakes crystallized when Lynn announced she was pregnant. She declared her parents wouldn't be allowed near the child without genuine change and accountability. The prospect of missing their grandchild's life shook them deeply. I demonstrated grace by preventing preventing my father from buying the parents' mortgage and foreclosing. I wanted to show I wasn't vindictive, just protective. The message was clear. I could destroy them, but chose not to. Lin's extended family formally disinvited the parents from Chinese New Year celebrations. This exclusion from the most important family gathering was a devastating blow to their cultural identity. Truth prevailed as even the parents' oldest friends acknowledged their wrongdoing. People who'd known them for decades couldn't defend their actions. The evidence was too overwhelming to deny. The parents agreed to therapy, but the therapist reported they weren't taking it seriously. They spent sessions blaming each other and external circumstances rather than accepting responsibility. Lin received these reports with diminishing hope. Lin's mother made one last manipulation attempt, claiming I had brainwashed Lin against them. She insisted their daughter would never stand up to them without my influence. The accusation revealed how little she knew her own daughter. Lin firmly rejected this narrative, listing every incident she now saw clearly. She explained how their actions had pushed her away long before I'd revealed the truth. Their manipulation had backfired completely. The parents faced social isolation at every community event. They ate alone at gatherings where they'd once held court. Former friends avoided eye contact. Their fall from grace was complete and public. Lin's relationship with her extended family strengthened as they rallied around her. Aunts and uncles who'd been distant became supportive. The family was healing by excluding the toxic elements. My family welcomed Lin as a true daughter. My grandmother gave Lin her own mother's ring, a family heirloom never before offered to an in-law. The gesture moved Lin to tears. Armed with full documentation, Lin confronted her parents one final time about their lies. She presented a timeline of their deceptions, demanding they acknowledge each incident. The evidence was undeniable. The parents finally admitted to some wrongdoing, but still claimed cultural differences as justification. They insisted they'd acted out of love and protection. Lin saw through these excuses immediately. Lin's aunt arrived at our apartment the following week, carrying an old smartphone. She revealed she'd been recording family gatherings for years to preserve memories, but had inadvertently captured Lin's parents discussing their schemes. The recordings spanned 18 months and included detailed planning sessions about sabotaging our relationship. Text messages between Lin's parents surfaced through the family group chat. Lin's cousin had access to her mother's cloud backup and discovered exchanges where the parents acknowledged their actions were wrong but justified them with phrases about protecting their daughter's future. One message stood out where Lin's mother wrote that Lin would thank them someday for saving her from marrying beneath her station. Lin created a comprehensive timeline documenting every incident, cross-referencing it with the evidence we'd collected. She demanded her parents acknowledge each specific action during a meeting at a neutral location. They arrived at the community center conference room looking haggard, their usual polish completely gone. The confrontation lasted 3 hours. Lin methodically presented each piece of evidence while her parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. When confronted with irrefutable proof, they could no longer deflect or minimize their actions. The community's judgment became swift and decisive. The cultural committee that Lin's parents had served on for 15 years requested their immediate resignation. The letter cited conduct unbecoming of community leaders and actions that reflected poorly on their organization. Lin's father attempted to salvage his reputation by shifting all blame onto his wife during a desperate phone call to the committee chair. He claimed she'd masterminded everything while he'd merely gone along to keep peace in his marriage. This betrayal marked a turning point in their relationship. His accusation triggered Lin's mother's fury. She retaliated by revealing that her husband had wanted to disown Lin completely when she first started dating me. She insisted she'd protected Lin from his most extreme impulses, painting herself as the lesser evil. Family members watched in horror as the parents' marriage imploded publicly. Their mutual accusations grew more vicious with each exchange. Relatives who'd known them for decades couldn't reconcile this vindictive couple with the image they'd carefully cultivated. Lin struggled to process her parents' destruction while managing her pregnancy. The stress manifested physically through headaches and insomnia. Her doctor recommended limiting contact with stressful situations for the baby's health. She made the difficult decision to cut contact temporarily. A formal letter informed her parents that communication would cease until after the baby's birth and only resume if they demonstrated genuine change through consistent therapy. The parents' attempts to circumvent this boundary through other family members failed. Every relative they approached supported Lin's decision, recognizing the necessity of protecting her health and the baby's well-being. 6 months passed in relative peace. Lin focused on preparing for motherhood while building stronger relationships with supportive family members. My parents embraced their roles as expectant grandparents with enthusiasm. The baby shower arrived on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Lin's friends and supportive family members gathered at my parents' home to celebrate. The atmosphere was joyful until security cameras showed 2 familiar figures approaching the front door. Lin's parents stood on the doorstep, uninvited and unexpected. They carried an expensive gift basket and wore their best clothes, attempting to project an image of reformed parents. Security had been briefed about this possibility and intercepted them before they could enter. Lin met them in the driveway, maintaining physical distance while they pleaded their case. Her mother claimed they'd changed, but her words revealed the same manipulative patterns. She spoke of their rights as grandparents else, and how unfair Lin was being to them. Her father's situation had deteriorated professionally. He admitted his boss no longer trusted him after my father's strategic lunch meeting had raised questions about his character. His career trajectory had stalled, and younger colleagues were being promoted over him. The confrontation escalated when Lin's grandmother arrived unexpectedly from China. She'd flown in without telling anyone, determined to support her granddaughter during this difficult time. Her presence shifted the power dynamic completely. The elderly woman's judgment was swift and harsh. She revealed she'd always known about their prejudice, but had hoped they'd outgrow it. Her disappointment in them was palpable as she recounted observations from over the years. Lin faced a crucial decision about allowing supervised visits with her baby. She weighed the benefits of maintaining some family connection against the risk of exposing her child to their toxic influence. The choice required careful consideration. After extensive discussion with her therapist and lawyer, Lin decided to offer limited contact under strict conditions. The parents would need to demonstrate consistent therapy attendance and accountability for 6 months before any visits could occur. The terms were non-negotiable. They had to sign a legal agreement acknowledging their past actions in detail. The document would serve as protection if they ever attempted to manipulate the situation or seek custody rights. Lin's mother initially refused to sign, her pride preventing her from admitting fault in writing. This created a final rift between the parents as her father signed immediately, desperate for any chance to be in his grandchild's life. The mother's last manipulation attempt involved trying to turn Lin's grandmother against her. She painted Lin as ungrateful and influenced by me to reject her culture. The attempt backfired spectacularly. Lin's grandmother's response was cutting. She revealed she'd observed their behavior for years and had kept detailed notes. Her documentation predated my relationship with Lin, proving their controlling nature wasn't about protecting their daughter from me specifically. Faced with her mother-in-law's condemnation and her husband's betrayal, Lin's mother finally capitulated. She signed the agreement with shaking hands, her signature barely legible through her trembling. My parents offered to supervise any future visits, demonstrating grace that Lin's parents couldn't comprehend. They agreed to provide neutral ground where interactions could occur safely with clear boundaries. A new family structure emerged from the chaos. Strict boundaries governed all interactions. The baby would know their biological grandparents, but under controlled circumstances that prioritized the child's well-being. Lin's mother's tremor, which had plagued her throughout the conflict, finally calmed when she held her grandchild for the first time under supervision. The moment was bittersweet, representing both loss and possibility. 1 year later, our dining room table reflected the new family hierarchy. Lin's parents sat quietly at the far end, speaking only when directly addressed. They'd learned their place in this reconfigured family dynamic. My parents occupied the seats of honor, having earned their position through unconditional love and support. They interacted naturally with our child, their warmth contrasting sharply with the careful distance maintained with Lin's parents. Lin stood stronger than ever, surrounded by chosen family who truly supported her. She'd broken the generational cycle of manipulation and control. Our child would grow up knowing healthy boundaries and genuine love. The path had been painful, and the scars remained. Lin's parents attended therapy sessions and submitted regular progress reports as required by their agreement. Whether they'd achieve genuine redemption remained uncertain. They existed now on the periphery of our lives, present but not central. Their influence had been neutralized through exposure and consequence. They watched our child play, knowing their role would always be limited by their own actions. The story could have ended with complete estrangement, but Lin chose a harder path. She offered just enough hope to keep them trying while protecting what mattered most. Her parents learned that actions have lasting consequences. Our family gatherings now included those who'd proven their loyalty through actions rather than blood. The definition of family had expanded beyond genetics to encompass those who showed genuine love and support. Lin's parents' fall from grace served as a cautionary tale within their community. Other parents reconsidered their own biases and behaviors, not wanting to face similar consequences. Change rippled outward from our personal struggle. The supervised visits continued monthly, each one carefully documented. Progress was slow and sometimes non-existent, but the structure provided stability for everyone involved while maintaining essential boundaries. Our child grew surrounded by love from multiple sources. The contrast between grandparents was obvious even to young eyes. Natural affection flowed with my parents, while interactions with Lin's parents remained formal and structured. This new reality was neither perfect nor easy. It required constant vigilance and regular reassessment, but it represented the best possible outcome from an impossible situation. Lin had salvaged what she could while protecting what she must. The cycle of manipulation that had plagued Lin's family for generations had finally been broken. Our child would grow up free from those toxic patterns. The price had been high, but the freedom was worth every difficult decision. Lin's parents sat at our table, forever changed by their own choices. They'd learned that love couldn't be controlled or coerced. Their presence was tolerated rather than welcomed, a constant reminder that actions echo through generations.